Yo, 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 it's that time again. It's Thursday afternoon. It might be Thursday morning for you. I don't care. But it is time again for another Open Metaverse show. And today we're going to be talking to one of the undoubted breakout stars of the last 12 months, Emily Yang, people pleaser. She is a phenomenon. She was in Cannes last week explaining what she does, how she does it, to variety of all things. The seal is really off the NFT space now. We are out in the open. But before we got into that, I wanted to just check in on this story that broke yesterday, which was all about Nate Chastain, who has been formally arrested and charged with NFT insider trading. It's actually wire fraud that he's been charged with. It's such a strange case, this. The documents allege that Chastain laundered at least 45 NFTs in 2021, each time selling them for 2 to 5 times what he had paid for them. So the allegation is that he used information that was unavailable to the public, i.e. what was going to be put on OpenSea's front page, acquired these NFTs before they were publicized, and then when inevitably the crowds came in and started to buy them up, he made a profit from that. And then he tried to kind of covertly shuffle it through secret wallets and make a profit that way. And the thing is, like, the guy didn't even really make a ton out of this. I mean, if you're going to commit fraud, at least go and do it like a boss and make a lot. I'm not condoning fraud, by the way, but this is nuts. Like, I mean, Nate, what were you thinking? I mean, is this really worth it? So the feeling is that this is really the first of what will be many such cases. If you have messed around with NFTs, or you have misled a community, or you have done anything where even just one member of a community might hold a grudge against you and will become an informant to the authorities, then, well, I suggest getting a lawyer, because inevitably this will come back to you. It always does. There have been instances of traders who were running kind of like illegal investment schemes over the course of 2018, 2019. And when community members are angry and they think that you've done something wrong, they will get you. And so if you're an influencer and you dumped on your followers, or you did something dodgy, just beware, because I don't think this is the end of it. Conversely, on the other side of it, and we keep talking about law enforcement, we keep talking about the powers that be. There's this weird story about more than a dozen staff attorneys that have left the SEC. Apparently, Gensler he's acting tough in more ways than one, and he's trying to get tough on crypto. He's broadening the reach of the SEC, and again, we're seeing this kind of, maybe it's overreach, maybe it's the need to be seen as tough from US regulatory agencies around everything to do with crypto. It remains to be seen where they will land on NFTs, whether they will consider them securities. At the moment, it's quite difficult to pin down an NFT as a security. But if you are selling an NFT and it comes with a token attached, and there was an expectation of some kind of profit from that, and you cannot prove that it's simply a governance token, then yeah, you might be in trouble. So best to be aware of all of that. What we do know is that there are significant lights being shone on all of our space at the moment, and it's no secret that what happened with Terra has, well, it's elevated the need for investors to be protected in some way, and that's probably a net positive in all of this. But what is definitely a positive in all of this is people pleaser. So this is Emily Yang. She calls herself a high-quality meme generator, a one-woman studio, and it's really a story of someone who had undoubted talent, who was clearly very, very good at what she did, which was creating 3D anime-inspired art, and had been working for some very exceptional companies, had just fallen foul of the pandemic, and through sheer resourcefulness, found a way to earn a living, firstly by making kind of meme GIFs and that kind of thing for DeFi protocols specifically. And then there was this one moment, which was the Uniswap film. And we're just going to start by watching that film now. So bear in mind, it took her about a month to make this. We'll get into how she did it when we actually speak. But a month to create this, that's pretty damn hardcore. This is no simple animation. There's lots of 3D, lots of programming going on to create the particle effects, for instance. So that was X times Y equals K. And that really is the genesis of the people pleaser that we know now. And as if by magic, she has arrived. Hey,
Hi.
it's me, or should I call you Emily? What do you prefer to go by?
Both are fine, honestly.
Pick a lane. You got to pick one.
You can call me Emily.
Emily? Okay. Well, I could call you Peeps. P to the P. Or something.
That's funny because Peeps is actually the governance token that PleaserDAO uses for voting on things.
Oh, of course it is. Well, please, that whole story is dope. How are you? You've been on your travels. You've been
Good.
around the place. How are things?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. This is super, but I'm in a hotel in Barcelona right now, and I think housekeeping just knocked on the door, so I'm just gonna tell them to not disturb.
You're keeping it so real right now.
This is as real as it gets.
That's perfect. That's what we want. We don't want like, oh, my life is so wonderful right now. I was just on the red carpet, and now look, I got this Prada bag. Wow.
Yeah, no, we want the real deal. Okay. Awesome. So
yes, what are you doing in Barcelona? What can you say?
I'm just passing by because I was just in Cannes for like south of France for Cannes Film Festival, and then after Cannes I went to Monaco and then Nice, and then yesterday I drove from Nice to Barcelona, just passing by, and then gonna head over to like the south of Spain this weekend.
That is an epic drive. That whole coastline.
Yeah, it is.
Down there. Oh my god, it's
Unfortunately,
so
I don't
beautiful.
know if I'm gonna do the entire. I have done it before, all the way from around Barcelona down to Malaga and Seville. It's really a really epic drive, but I think this time around might be faster to just fly. But I did do the drive from Nice to Barcelona, which was nice, and then from Barcelona might just fly down.
Yeah, Todd Starbuck is saying Barcelona is awesome. Did you manage to catch any of the museums there? The Miro Museum and the Picasso Museum there are just like, they are so good.
So I'm gonna butcher this completely, but I was hoping during my little break today that I would get to see the Sagrada Familia.
That's Sagrada Familia, yeah, the Gaudi.
So my time in Barcelona is not that long. So within my small time frame here, I hope to at least do that. I did realize though that I came during a really bad time because everything is super booked out and very expensive, and I was wondering why. And then they told me that just this weekend, or while I'm here, is apparently the Coachella of Europe or of Barcelona. It's called like Primavera Sound or something.
Oh, of course. Well, there you go then. Damn Spanish. They ruined everything. I'm also ruining everything by booking you for a podcast. I saw that you had another one scheduled with Tom Bilyeu from Motion Theory as well.
Yeah. So today is sort of like my day that I get to relax and chill in a hotel, which is nice. And so I'll have like stable internet and be able to do these things, which I enjoy and is fun. So it's not work for me.
No, okay, that's good. That's good. Well, we've been chasing you for months now, trying to talk to you because you have such a great story, and there was
quite crazy. So I apologize for being hard to reach, and I'm so glad that we're finally getting to do this.
Oh, I know, totally. Tell me about Cannes. I've watched the Variety interview. That must have been surreal.
It was actually I mean, obviously I think a very surreal experience, but I think I just enjoy everything. Went by so quickly, it was like a blur. And so I didn't really like have that much time to process everything, but really I think it was mostly just the amount of like amazing people that you meet. And it's one of the first few things that I go to that aren't really like a crypto conference. And so it was very eye-opening and also humbling. You meet all these really, really incredible people who have done so many incredible things with their lives. And you realize, you're just like a small fish in a very, very big ocean, which was really great. And this year, basically, they wanted to sort of highlight more women. I think the film industry, amongst all industries, is specifically one that is very, very not gender diverse, especially amongst like film directors and things like that. And so, yeah, I'm so lucky that they decided to, I always joke, I'm like, it's a great time to be a woman, where they are sort of like inviting and celebrating people who might have never been able to have these types of opportunities, just because they want to empower more women doing cool things. So I'm so, so grateful for that.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's funny when you turn up on a film set and literally there's like one woman, and it's usually someone in the camera department. It's usually like an AC or something is a woman, or a focus puller. And but it's such a rarity. They're never in the grip department or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
so strange. You were working on films before, but were you always in post production and that kind of thing?
Ever since I started working, I've been in post production. So I started working my career at this visual effects studio called MPC, and
No,
I
but
worked on.
just I'm just going to stop for a second there and say that MPC is one of, if not the biggest, visual effects companies in the world. Like any commercial under the sun that has VFX in it, MPC did it. They're massive.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
I
just
guess
so
you
you
could
know.
say that. So it was definitely sort of a also dream come true moment for me. I remember my first day in the studio and seeing like the posters of all the different movies they worked on, and as like a training course, the first thing they had us do was, because I was a lighter, so they had us light a shot from Godzilla, the 2014 movie, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm, interacting with the actual Godzilla right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. The visual effects industry. I mean, I had a friend who worked in NPC in London, and the the word that came out of it was it could be at times a bit like a sweatshop. And I don't know
It
whether that's
is.
the experience you had of it, but there was an increasing need to get more visual effects done to a higher standard in less time consistently, and it never stopped, and people just got worked into the ground. Which I don't know if that was your experience of it, but it seems unsustainable, really, to me.
Yeah, that was definitely my experience. And so um I think at the time I was really grateful for any kind of job experience that was given to me. And I was happy to be in a sweatshop because, I was like, oh, I'm getting experience and, it's really great. But definitely, I think as your career sort of matures and you get older and you get more responsibilities, as in outside of the career, just like in life in general, if you're trying to have a family, it's definitely not the most sort of stable, as well as, yeah, it doesn't provide you very flexible hours to work around. And so for me at least, I didn't realize at the time because I was so young and naive and bright-eyed, but and I was like, oh, it's a good thing that I don't mind not getting paid anything to because I get to work on all these cool movies. But definitely I think as you get older and your sort of priorities shift in life, you realize that it is probably somewhat important to have a stable job. And this kind of, I think, would be a nice segue into sort of how I got into crypto in general. But definitely it was during that time where I mean anybody who's worked in this industry would know that job stability is just pretty much non-existent. Everybody is just working contract to contract, chasing one gig to another. And it really is, not the most, I think, as a young person who's, willing to move around a lot and stuff, it's very exciting. But, if you have a family and stuff, I can imagine it's very, very difficult, right? And all of this actually sort of happened as I think, a result of a lot of things. First is that I think everybody working in visual effects or animation is very passionate about the work and the art that they do, and so passionate to the point where I think a lot of them would literally work for free just because they love it so much. On top of that is the lack of sort of like unions that have formed. So, for example, like actors have unions. I think even film cater companies have unions, and film accountants. Like, there's all these unions within the film industry, but for whatever reason, there just wasn't one for specifically post production or visual effects artists. And, you know, often what happens is things like you could spend many months of your life working on a film and never even get credited for it. And, you know, whenever you, if anybody ever watches the credits for any kind of film, visual effects, especially, you know, movies like Godzilla, is such an important part of the movie. You know, it pretty much makes a movie, right? There's no Godzilla if nobody sits there and animates it. But all of the visual effects credits are always at the very, very end, even behind, you know, all the caterers or accountants or any sort of the most obscure like on-set role that you can think of. And then comes the visual effects people. So, you know, there's been a lot of sort of controversy in the past around this whole industry and how sort of not very respected they are in the industry despite the amount of work that they do. And yeah, the budget that goes into visual effects as well. And I think, you know, it's created this sort of, all of those things combined has created this environment where visual effects houses are having to constantly bid on against each other for getting gigs from movies and production companies. And it's created this semi-toxic cycle, I think, that many visual effects studios themselves would like to break out of. And so, yeah, I mean, we can talk more about it later, but you know, I'm sort of, at least my latest project right now is, you know, also a combination of that and how I'm trying to tackle that, as well as it was also for these reasons that I sort of segued or transitioned into the career that I have today.
There's something horrible about being a creative artist, because you pour everything you have into a project, which means that that's all you're doing, and you don't think what's the next gig, because you can't think that far, and you're working from 6 till midnight every day because that's what you do. And I've shot hundreds of music videos, and I've made a feeture film, all these kind of things, and at a certain point you just go, this is ridiculous. Why are we doing this? Like, the music video budgets are just descending to hell. They were gone. And there are kids who will work harder and have more mates in visual effects who will be able to do all these things. It becomes basically impossible at a certain stage. And I think my trajectory probably was a very similar one to yours, which is I just went, you know what, I've had enough. And I took a stable job shooting coffee commercials and vacuum cleaner commercials and stuff that I literally wanted to kill myself about, because it was so soul destroying. And there came a point where I just went, I need to do something just to keep me sane. And I started making GIFs for blockchain protocols. I mean, we literally had the same epiphany.
Yeah,
It was
we
like
literally have the
animation
same
skills.
story.
My animation skills are not the same as yours, but literally it was the thing that saved my creativity, was just making stupid GIFs, completely over engineered GIFs that was so unnecessarily good, but just because I needed to do it. And I just had an idea, and I do them on the train on the way into work. And that's how I got there. And I think you had a similar thing. And I also had a similar journey, which is, it wasn't a year out of work, but I did a massive TV show in the UK. And I thought, oh, I'll be working in TV now. Didn't get a job for 6 months. It was just the most soul destroying thing ever. It's just pummeling, kills you. So I really want to dig into kind of how you picked up the Wacom tablet and decided to start working for DeFi protocols, of all things, where there's no promise of anything. You're just going to go, well, here's a thing. How did that happen?
Yeah, so it was basically during it was actually at the start of the pandemic. I had just finished my contract up at Blizzard like end of the year before, so end of 2019.
The
And
game
then I
studio.
had, sorry?
The game studio.
Yeah, the game studio. So I was
Games.
working
Yeah.
on their cinematics department and on the Diablo 4 cinematic, if anyone has seen it.
That was awesome. I bet that was
Yeah.
so good.
I think at that point, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the height of my career. I worked on the coolest thing ever. Watching it live at BlizzCon, which I don't consider myself a gamer or much of a game nerd before, but after that whole experience, I was definitely initiated, I would say. Just being in that, it's like, yeah, it's like going to a crypto conference, but it's all for Blizzard fans and people who are very passionate and enthusiastic about games, and watching their reaction to the cinematic. Well, I think the Diablo one was also a special one because it was so highly anticipated. Actually, very similar to the Uniswap ad. I mean, obviously not on the same level, but it was like for I think 7 years, people were waiting for this announcement, right? And so every year at BlizzCon, people would be like, "Is this the year that they're going to drop the Diablo 4 cinematic? You know, are they going to announce Diablo 4 this year? And then every year they didn't do it until finally 2019 they unleashed the trailer, and then everyone went crazy because it was a really good trailer. And
What
so
were you making those in? Was it Unreal or was it something else?
no, those are they have their own in-house renderer or and lighting software. We were using this thing called Aurora. I believe they have moved to more industry standard ones now, but at the time it was definitely more proprietary.
Oh,
But it
okay.
was not Unreal Engine; it was pre-rendered.
Okay, nice. So from there, it was like, wow, this is it. I know where I belong, and then boom.
Yeah, so it was like this height of, wow, I mean, I've worked at Blizzard. You know, if you're an animator or somebody in the industry, you'd think that Blizzard is pretty much the highest you can go. It's where everybody dreams to go. And then I thought, oh, my career is set, you know, and then I did know that I was waiting for, you know, sort of several other contracts. I did also place sort of a more of an importance at the time to live in New York because Blizzard was out in California and so I had to relocate. But then I relocated back to New York, hoping to get more full-time job there. I thought, you know, with 6 years of experience under my belt and also having to work at Blizzard, surely I could get some kind of a full-time job in New York now. And, you know, I was very wrong. I was job hunting for a while. And then finally, I think it was in around March, I finally got a job offer, but it was at Apple. So then you know, it was kind of after not getting a bunch of jobs in New York, then I sort of had to look outside of New York, and obviously Apple's in California again. So I was sort of, but I was like, you know what, any job is better than no job, right? And it's Apple, so you know, I was pretty excited. I took the offer, and then I think about a month later, so this was in April of 2020, they called me and then they were like, "Oh, we're so sorry. You know, there's this whole pandemic going on." And, you know, I was like locked in my apartment too. I was kind of expecting it, to be honest, because at that point, you know, especially in April 2020, if anyone had been in New York or really anywhere in the world, everything was just looking very grim. And so I think I had a feeling that it was probably not going to happen. And then so, yeah, needless to say, they rescinded my offer. I was continuing to look for jobs. And then I had been collecting unemployment insurance already just because I need to pay rent in New York. And, you know, you don't make that much money as a visual effects artist before. And then when I think after like I would say a few months of this, I started to get really worried. Um, you know, I was like, okay, rent in New York is really expensive, and global everything is looking really bad, and I don't have a job. And then so that's when I sort of started looking into other sort of revenue streams or you know other ways to make money, and it reminded me of back in 2017 when I had saved up a little bit of money. I had started looking into cryptocurrency. I actually just wanted to initially invest my money, but I have no knowledge of anything about traditional finance. Stocks don't make sense to me. I don't understand the fact that you have to open a separate bank account or a special bank account just to buy stocks. Like, still to this day, I don't. Other than you know getting a Robin Hood or something, I don't
That's where
actually.
yeah, Robin Hood.
I
That's
was
your
just
answer.
but you know I think at the time it was like for some reasons I couldn't get Robinhood or something, and so I was just like, how do you buy stocks, you know? It's just anyway. And so all these like traditional finance banking things just don't really make that much sense to me. And then I discovered so I just went on the personal finance subreddit, started reading about how young like me are actually investing, and then that's how I discovered cryptocurrency. And then so I went down the whole sort of cryptocurrency subreddit, and then I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. You know, it's all on the internet. I can understand this. And then so, you know, that's when I made my first sort of round of cryptocurrency investments. And then obviously the 2018 bear market came. And so I just put it on the back burner and forgot about everything. And then when, you know, back when 2020 came again, also this was the summer when DeFi was really taking off. I was sort of just trying to look into other ways to make money. And then I have a friend, his name is Ray. He's really awesome. He's been in crypto forever. Like he's been holding Bitcoin since 2012 or something. And he was like, oh, there's something really crazy going on in crypto right now. It's called DeFi. You should look into it. And so I did. And it was all very confusing and very complex. And I was like, what is going on? You know, and then, but it was also very sort of just piqued my curiosity, right? And then so I kept reading about it more, and then I realized that there was all this promotional stuff going on. I mean, probably you've probably experienced a very similar thing. There's all these promotional stuff going around, but not really anybody who's putting in that much creative effort into making these materials, right? And then I was, sort of just put one and one together, and I was like, well, I have these skill sets that are not really that relevant, but I have now sort of acquired this new crypto curiosity and a little bit of knowledge. And I was like, how do I combine these things to make myself a little bit more useful and create sort of an alternate revenue stream for myself? And then so I remember one day Yearn Finance had tweeted out that, so I told my friend Ray, I was like, just jokingly, I said, these crypto companies should all hire me because I can just make animations for them, and I need money, so they should pay me. And then he actually took that to heart. So then when Yearn Finance that summer tweeted out that they were looking for somebody who's good at video editing, I told Ray, oh, I'm super interested. And then I think he gave them my Instagram. So sorry, sidetracking is that summer I also started a personal Instagram to make art, because while I was applying for jobs and waiting to hear back from interviews, I didn't want to feel like I was doing literally nothing with my life. It was the first time that I was just sort of idling at home, and where's the pandemic, we're all stuck at home. And I just really wanted to distract my mind about and making me feel like I'm somewhat of a productive member of society. And so I created this Instagram account where I just started making artwork for myself. And that's how People Pleaser was born. It was sort of like a tongue-in-cheek thing, or at the moment where I wanted to sort of please people with my art, but also just that I needed a cool artist name. And I was really just making art for myself. It wasn't really for anybody to see. I didn't have an audience at the time, but it was also to brush up on my generalist skill sets, because from the many years I was working in visual effects, I was very focused on one specific aspect of the pipeline of animation, and I wanted to be a more well-rounded artist. And so it was just kind of
You,
like a blank canvas I would use to create art and express myself, and also just to pass time. And you can see, yeah, here there's a lot of stuff, like there's a lot of my artwork around this time either featured like experimenting with Asian dragons, or there's like the Nintendo Switch, or some of them are kind of like trippy or depressing, I think very reflective of my mood at the time. And then, so then when the Yearn financing happened, Ray basically passed this Instagram with some of my work in it to them. And then they were like, oh, this is awesome. We should work together. And then so I actually made my first DeFi animation, which was never posted. And I still haven't posted yet, but I feel like I should, because I feel like it's
you
just
have
super fun.
you've established yourself. Your back catalog is worth something now, and I think you should recognize that. You're a person of what is the word when you're applying for a visa in the US? An alien of extraordinary ability. Like, you're a person of extraordinary ability. I think that's proven now. But what I guess I want to dig into more is, what did you think of your art at the time? Did you think that you were good? Did you think that you were capable of being good, or did you just like think, well, I've got some skills and I could do a thing, and maybe that could be useful? I'm curious what you thought of your work at that point in time.
What I thought at the time was, it's funny because when you look at my archive of work right now, I think my style is a little bit all over the place. Like there's not really one sort of very consistent style. And it was definitely very reflective of how I was just literally experimenting. I went from an artist who had no style, because my whole career I was just doing what other people were telling me to do, to like discovering, there are certain colors I like, there's certain colors I don't like. And but I think, always there's sort of been kind of like a feminine touch to my work, which was not really intentional. I think it's just uh, like just a matter of
Just
fact of
comes
who
out.
I am.
Yeah.
But then there's some cultural elements in there as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think, some pieces like this one, for example, I think I was more focused on the technical elements of it, where I was just trying to create a render that looked as realistic as possible. And that's more of like the technical side of things. And then there's other ones where I'm like trying to be more artistic with it and more expressive or experimental with it. And yeah, I think it was also during this summer that I developed the tune shading technique, which, for example, like that one, yeah, like the girl one or whatever, these are specifically a technique that even though it's 3D, when you render it out, it makes it look like it's animated or 2D. And so that summer I was really, really into sort of developing different methods as well. I knew that I had an like technical skills because that's what I have been learning for 6 years working in the film industry, right? It's just they're teaching you these are the skills that you need to know to make the best Hollywood visual effects. But I don't know if I thought I was good at the time in terms of artistic expression or, what I liked. But now, and I think I sort of beat myself up at the time too for just not having a style, like, one that's not really easily recognizable. But now I think it's more, it doesn't have to be a visual thing that's a style, right? I think, you know, when people look at my work, whether it's a video or something, there's maybe either certain elements of like trippiness or some kind of humor or something that's in there that gives it the people pleaser touch and not necessarily just the visual style that it resembles. And so, yeah, I guess that's a little really, really long winded way of saying I had no idea if I was good or not at the time. It was more of just like an exploratory journey of self expression.
And you wouldn't have got there without COVID. It's funny because I had exactly the same experience, and I've been doing this a lot longer than you have. 20 years of being really, really good at giving people what they wanted. And I always make this difference between an artisan and an artist. And an artisan is extremely good at, taking a brief and delivering the brief, and everybody's happy, but it's not memorable per se, and you're part of essentially a studio. But an
Yeah,
artist is a pain in the butt. You come out of the entire experience of working with an artist exhausted. At least you should. But at the end of the day, when you see the work, you just go, this could not have come into being without the difficulty. And
I know.
that is 100% the thing. And I had the same instinct as you that I looked at crypto and went, communications here, video sucks balls. It is garbage. And it's beyond garbage. And I saw an opportunity to do something creative and bring what I thought storytelling could do with it. And we just started doing the weirdest thing. So, when Curve Finance launched, it was so ridiculous. I was like, well, what is the most ridiculous thing I can do? All right, we'll just start with a banana because a banana is curved. And we're like, oh, the banana could be a phone, and we have a banana thrown in my head, and like we just riffed on bananas. Like, who does that? But like you, I was just like, well, I'm just gonna do this and keep doing it because it makes me happy. And then from there, we just kind of built this bizarre identity of people that just will not do the thing that you expect us to do, and we'll continue to not do that because we don't know any other way. And over the course of doing that and putting myself in front of the camera, I became an artist. And I hadn't been for 20 odd years. I've been very good at delivering like stuff that felt like other people's work and was really polished and great, but like you didn't see me at all in it. And now I'm very free to just be the weird self that I am. And that's just so liberating. And it's because of crypto. The stupid thing. And I needed this to make that happen.
Yeah, I honestly that resonates with me so much, and I feel so incredibly blessed. And it's funny how when you look back on things and you think, oh, everything happens for a reason, but at the time it just sort of all fell into place. But I feel very similarly where when I first started making DeFi animations, it was just mind blowing the amount of freedom that they gave you, because crypto is itself is so weird. And I think, it definitely takes a certain type of personality to understand that kind of culture and humor as well. And I think thankfully this comes from my years of spending time on weird corners of the internet, like Reddit and 4chan and things like that. I think
Okay,
the Twitter's
tell me more about that. You can't just say I've spent time in weird corners of the internet. What's going on there? Like, what are you doing?
it's funny because I think this comes from the also related to my career. When you work in VFX, everybody knows there's like these sprints where they're like trying to deliver a movie and then you're working nonstop hours, like 14 hours a day for like 6 weeks in a row or even longer. And then sometimes they, sort of don't do their jobs correctly in hiring and then they accidentally hire you during like a blank period and then you don't really have anything to do. And so during these blank periods where I'm just sitting in the office and I actually have zero work to do, I think there were two times that this happened to me. And each time it lasted for 7 months where And I call this, it's such a first world complaint because, you know, oh, I still had a job, I was getting paid, but it's sort of like a first world version of hell where, or prison, where you're forced to go into an office and sit in front of a computer and just do nothing for 7 hours. um, and so that's pretty much what I did. And you know, I think it was like, you know, I can't be like watching Netflix or YouTube because that looks bad, right? And then so sort of like the most discreet things that I could find at the time were Reddit or, you know, sort of like more text-based websites. And it's funny because I think there was one that was like called Word It or something, where it was like it looks like Microsoft Word or like an Outlook interface, but it's actually Reddit. It's pretty hilarious. And so I would go on that, and so I'm actually just going on Reddit, but people think I'm like I'm looking at emails.
So if your supervisor just happens to walk by, you're like, nah, nothing to see here. I'm reading an email.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I've been reading emails for like past 6 hours, nothing to see here. And so yeah, that's sort of the story about how I've sort of spent so many hours of my life on these weird corners of the internet and really understanding deep meme culture, you know, which when I got on crypto Twitter, of course, I thought, oh, this is just like a cousin of that kind of same culture. And so yeah, going back to where I think you really need to first understand it and also live it. You know, it's actually I enjoyed making animations that reflected the style of like meme and culture and humor. And it wasn't just I was doing it to because I felt like this is what crypto wants or this is what this DeFi protocol wants. It's also, you know, sort of what I want, right? And what I imagine would be this DeFi protocol brought to life and things like that. So yeah, there's something
And because
really
there's such a
special
shortage
about
of
that.
anyone actually doing that to a high standard, because no one in their right mind would ever go there, because according to the way we normally get creative work commissioned or put into the world, this just seems completely upside down. I had exactly the same experience though. I always tell people from outside that where traditional creative industries are very gated and are very much a no culture. So people like to say no to you. Well, I liked it, but we're going to give it to this person, or you can't have this funding because X, because you didn't qualify or whatever. Crypto is a yes culture. People just go, yeah. They have no idea how difficult a thing is to be, and you make it easy for them, and they go, "Oh, this is great. Here's some stuff that like it might be worth something one day." And you go, "Oh, great!" like,
Yeah, no, that's
and then
so
you
true.
just go do it, and then like it's also the speed as well. Because when I was looking at that Uniswap thing, and apparently it took you a month to do it, I'm like, that's very fast, very 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 fast.
I mean, I would say from inception of the idea to actual completion, it was maybe 2 months. But yeah, actually, actual sort of execution of the animation, I think took about a month. Thankfully, you know, I had help of some, you know, of wonderful people that I worked with. So, you know, it's not my own sort of credit alone to complete the piece. You know, we had this really, really talented musician called Isaac Sleater who composed the track, which was amazing. And Hafid, who I have worked with on both the Fortune cover and the Uniswap animation, who helps me sort of with the FX or, you know, like some simulations. And I also work with Marian, who's an old coworker of mine. She's a very, very talented animator. She did animations for like Detective Pikachu and a bunch of ILM films. And so she made the actual movement of the unicorn, and that's why the unicorn walks, you know, like so naturally and smoothly. But yeah, so from the actual execution to finishing, it took about a month.
That's nuts. Now, listen, Emily, we're going to continue, but we have to do the usual thing, which is have to send to the sponsors who make all of this possible. We will be right back after these messages. Earn up to $2,500 in NFT rewards from top collections like Mutant Ape Yacht Club, Azuki, Doodles, and more when you sign up for Slingshot's mobile waitlist. Slingshot is a Web3 trading platform where you can discover and trade over 7,500 crypto tokens at the best prices at lightning fast speed. With a super sleek, intuitive UI, you feel like you're trading on a centralized exchange when you're actually trading DeFi. Trade now on desktop and make sure to grab your slot on the mobile waitlist. Sign up at slingshot.finance/the Defiant. Decentralization of Ethereum gives us security. Layer 2 protocol Arbitrum gives us low-cost transactions. TracerDAO's perpetual pools gives us liquidation-free, long-term leveraged tokens. The combination of all three of these unlocks the full potential of DeFi. Using Tracer, you can take long or short positions with leverage to trade anything: commodities, cryptocurrencies, equities, even NFTs. Dive into perpetual pools at tracer.finance and learn more about this exciting release with The Voyage, a 6-week journey in Tracer's perpetual pools to earn TCR rewards and explore the potential. So you're going to earn some TCR rewards on the Tracer perpetual pools?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. I actually went through Tracer and I do understand it now, but man, like some of the stuff in options and derivatives and stuff, it's getting up towards the kind of elastic limit of what I'm capable of intellectually. But I'm curious for you. Were you ever aware of the impact that this Uniswap animation would have? I'm just going to stick it on the screen now if people hadn't seen it before. And in case you're wondering, we are back with Emily Yang, aka People Pleaser, who is, well, on the stream with us. This is it. This is the unicorn. I can't play it full screen because everything will blow up if I do. But yeah, were you aware of how big this was going to be when you were making it?
It's funny because I feel like at that point I had made several animations already for various DeFi protocols, right? And with each one, I think if it was like an anticipated announcement or something, then I think like for example the Yearn V2 one was somewhat of an anticipated one. So I had some idea that whenever people are waiting for something, it's bigger. So I knew that Uniswap V3 was very, very highly anticipated. So I think I had some idea that it was going to be a big deal, but what I obviously didn't expect was first of all the NFT aspect of it. That was sort of something that came to fruition later. So it was while in tandem when I was making this animation that I had seen this was when Nifty Gateway was really, really starting to blow up, and all the celebrities would come in and drop, or even sort of digital artists that came and worked on stuff, and they would do sort of their own personal drops on Nifty Gateway, and I would see them just make like $1 million per drop and it would sell out. And I would think, even though I wasn't famous at the time, but I would think, oh, well, I have the same sort of skill set and I think same taste making skills. And, so I was just thinking, how can I sort of position myself to also have that kind of like basically I saw this giant tsunami wave that was coming, that was the interest in NFTs. And I was like, wow, I think this is going to be even bigger than DeFi. And how do I position myself so that I can also ride the wave of NFTs? And then so, through discussing with like friends and people, halfway through, I pitched the idea to Uniswap because I knew that, this animation would be watched by a lot of people. And I was like, I think this thing is going to be pretty viral. What do you guys think of letting me drop it as an NFT and we can, donate the money to a good cause? And, I was really nervous at the time actually, because I wasn't sure, when you do these things, especially coming from a film background, it's like even in visual effects, right? Even if you like literally designed Godzilla, you made it, doesn't matter because the IP belongs to the sort of like the actual production studio and, it's not even yours. And so I was like, oh, I don't know if they're going to be like, this IP belongs to us. You can't drop as an NFT. But, as we were saying previously in crypto, it's a very yes culture. So they're just like, yes, of course, and I was like, oh my God, amazing. And then, but, obviously with everything that happened with PleaserDAO and stuff, that was the part where I didn't realize how big it was going to be. I knew that, there were going to be people who would watch it, probably a lot of people confused by the video because doesn't really say much unless I actually sit down and explain it. But the NFT aspect was just kind of like me throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing if it sticks kind of thing. And it ended up being, I think, the thing that stuck the most.
I would say so. I think, yeah, you kind of smashed it with that one. It's looking at the date on this as well, March 25th, 2021. I seem to remember somewhere around like a month later, the entire market just just fell into a black hole. So you're literally right at the end of like this first great wave of NFTs, which actually had weirdly started like at the end of like midway through 2020 was when things were really starting to kind of get going with Ferocious and Trevor Jones and Xcopy,
Yeah.
Akatao. So you were relatively late into that cycle, but yes, it absolutely did. And then the weirdest thing happened, which was PleaserDAO. And like this must have taken you completely by surprise. So Leighton says, anyone want to create a quick DAO to bid on this? And like they did. How on earth did all that come about? Because it happened really fast. I seem to remember it was just suddenly like, oh, you are the name of a DAO that's got this mission to do cool things with art. But like, what involvement did you have in that, and how did it all come about?
Yeah, so it was funny because I think, you know, if anybody knows Jameis now, who's the sort of, you know, person who's like herding all the cats at PleaserDAO, he's a great, great executionist, right? And that was really kind of the whole idea that he did that at the time as well. And so, I mean, I didn't realize this was happening, but you know, I don't even know if I saw Leighton's tweet, to be quite honest. I think the first time I heard about it was, you know, the auction was ongoing already, and then I basically I had. Good afternoon. Sorry.
We're live, people. It's an invasion. Alp. The battery on my camera is about to die as well. What? Oh. So this is live, everyone. We People Pleaser is talking to somebody off camera. Someone's just come into a room, and also my battery's about to die on my cameras. If I die on this, fear not, I will be back. So you can probably still hear me, but you can't see me. It's going well. It's going real good.
Sorry.
There we go. Yeah. Well, funny enough, the battery on my camera also died. So so this is it's live. Okay. This is live. So yeah. So what was that? What happened?
Yeah. So I was saying that I basically was just walking, or I was in Taiwan at the time, I think. So the bid was ongoing, and then I had gotten a DM from Jameis, and he goes, "Hey, we're trying to bid on your piece as a collective. Do you know?" Like basically, he reached out to me because he's like, "Do you know if Foundation supports Gnosis Safe?" And I was like, first of all, I was like, I don't really know the people at Foundation, and secondly, I don't even know what a Gnosis Safe is. So that's kind of like how it started, or the first time that I had heard of it. And I had no idea what was going to like come of it, obviously. But you know, to me, it was like I was just very, yeah, it was just very just sort of, yeah, I just like had no idea what was going on. I think I had heard the term DAO before. You know, I was somewhat, I think, you know, basically collector DAOs didn't become popularized until PleaserDAO became a thing as well. You know, before that, I just heard like of like Uniswap DAO or, you know, Maker DAO. And, you know, I also admittedly wasn't super sure on what a DAO was. And so, you know, and I just had heard that they were trying to assemble this thing, but I also wasn't sure if it was actually going to happen. And, you know, they obviously strategically didn't make a bid until the very end, right? And then so when that happened, I was like, I was just like, oh, maybe they made some effort to get people together, but probably they couldn't figure out how to make Gnosis Safe work with Foundation and things like that. So it's just not going to happen. And then when they made the first bid at the very end, I was like, oh my gosh, they're actually doing it. And I had no idea that they had somehow gathered like 20 something people, which is really insane. And then, you know, then they like recruited Andrew Kang, who was like bidding against them, and it became this whole thing. So honestly, it was just like a really, really cool and serendipitous story that sort of came together.
Yeah, here's the tweet when the sale ended at 310 ETH, around about 525 grand at the time. Did you ever imagine you would raise that much?
I remember thinking anything beyond like the 30 to 50 ETH range was a lot, to like would be like way exceeding my expectations.
And then you said, I'm actually crying. and you posted a picture of yourself actually crying. It's sort of
Yeah.
weird because I think you didn't believe that you deserved that. And there were other artists. I mean, obviously we'd had the Beeple insanity, which just blown the roof off everything. But this was very kind of raw and honest from you in this moment.
Yeah, I think when I took this photo, it wasn't even the price. I think it was just, yeah, I always describe it as like you're like playing a baseball game or something, and then watch, and then you look over to the bench, and all your friends suddenly decide to show up and cheer for you. I think it's that kind of feeling that was the most touching, was just that, yeah, people in DeFi, or like my friends in DeFi, or people who I've worked with in the past, felt motivated enough to actually coordinate with each other and make this happen, was the most sort of touching thing of all of this.
And they did it without you. They did it because they wanted to. I think that was
Yeah,
so
exactly.
but that's the power of DAOs, which aren't 100% autonomous. They're kind of like a multi-sig with a community behind it. But like it still showed that this was actually possible. And then like PleaserDAO set up. They have their own token, as you said before on the stream, Peeps. And then they bought the Doge NFT, which is nuts. And then they bought this is my favorite one of all, the Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. Funnily enough, I got caught up very, very briefly in a rival bid for this. We were talking to some people at Solana about possibly putting in a rival bid for the Once Upon a Time in Shaolin thing, and we never really got off the ground. But like I saw the story from the inside out, and I got the scoop on it. And I've known about this album for donkey's years. It's this legendary, and for it to suddenly come up, because obviously when you talk about NFT, you have these cultural reference points for what they're about, and this was always the one where like this band, this hip hop art group released this thing in the style of an NFT, but it's a real one, and it's like no one's ever heard it. It's the fact that it now resides with them. I mean, it's nuts. It's
Yeah,
so cool.
it's nuts. I mean, it's just, I think that's sort of just like the nice roundabout of what PleaserDAO does best, is they're just a giant agent of chaos that sort of somehow comes together at the last minute and does really cool things together, and makes these sort of cultural um, remarks, right? Like sort of significant moments of either purchasing or doing something really cool. So yeah, I mean, they'll always be part of, I guess, my identity and my story, and vice versa. And I'm forever grateful.
Yeah, it's funny because there's this rich history that is written through crypto, and it becomes this giant soap opera. Like the fall of Terra and UST is one of these kind of giant stories that will inevitably become a movie. My boss Camilla Russo has written a book which is being turned into a movie. But you have these significant cultural moments in time, like Beeple's Everydays. Clearly, the Uniswap film belongs in that category. But what I love so much is that I think towards the end of, gosh, when was it? At the end of last year, I interviewed Tom Bilyeu and a Polish concept designer whose work just blew my mind. And I'd always known about him. I am, of course, talking about Maciej Kuchara. And we had the most awesome chat about NFTs and what was possible and different ways of funding things and using things like Alchemix to create a virtuous cycle of funding mechanisms. And then it turns out you're working with him on Shibuya. And I want to just remind people of Maciej's work because, you know, Ghost in the Shell, but also like his anime stuff. And what I love about Maciej's work is the eyes. The eyes are so unusual the way he draws them. It's just the best. So how did that all
Yeah.
come about?
Oh my gosh. So I've been Mache's biggest fan. I mean, that's a stretch because I'm sure he has many, many really enthusiastic fans. So, but I have been just, such a fan of his work for a really long time, especially when I was developing the tune shading techniques. I was like, man, there's only one person in this world who does this better than I do, which is Mache. I'm so sorry. Someone's knocking on my door again. I think it's the hotel people. Give me a second.
So we can dig a little into Maciej Kuchara's work. You can see here, like it's so evocative. And Maciej did a series of drops with, of all people, Steve Aoki and Tom Bilyeu last year, and we covered them, and no one was interested. To be honest with you, they just sort of landed at the wrong time, and it's a big shame because Maciej is really one of the most extraordinary creative souls you're ever going to meet. His work is just extraordinary. I love it so much. And like,
I'm so sorry. I don't understand why they keep knocking on my door.
It's because they know you're doing a live stream. That's all.
Yeah,
That's
I
all it
really
is.
was like, I just need 20 minutes. I'm doing a live stream.
Do they want to clean the room or something?
Yeah, and I don't know. And I think that
You've
they
been
want to
hanging
clean the
around
room.
the dark corners of the internet again, and it's literally everywhere, isn't it? They know. They need to tidy it up. So listen, Maciej, you're a big fan.
Yes.
And
I was a huge fan, and then so I think it was after the Uniswap thing. He started following me on Twitter. I remember getting a notification on my phone. It's like Maciej Kuchiara. I just started following you, and I was like, what? And I was like, is this the actual Maciej? I know. And then so I checked. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually him. And I was like fangirling. I was like, should I DM him and stuff? And then so at the time, I remember I just shot him a little DM. And I was like, hey, Maciej, like such a huge fan of your work. I would love to know how you do your tune shading sometime. And then he was like, oh my gosh, thank you. And and it's funny because at the time he worked with Tom and Steve Aoki on his first NFT drop, which was the Neon Genesis. And later on, I think one day I was like sort of thinking, I think it was like a few months later, he randomly shot me a message and he was just like, hey, just thinking out loud, I think we should do a collab sometime. And I was like, no way. You want to do a collab with me? Like, that's crazy. And then so I really sort of took that to heart and I started thinking, okay, what would make sense for me to do a collaboration with Maciej on and things like that. And obviously, my love for anime and his love for anime, I think are both sort of very reciprocal. And then so I thought, it has to be something to do with that, as well as, around the time I think I was sort of also getting to a point where I was trying to think already about how we can bring the NFT space forward, because I felt like at the time, I sort of mentioned this in my Medium post as well, just everything given my history, like my history of working in visual effects and, sort of my animations with DeFi and how I feel like, at the time, NFTs were so focused on just little like JPEGs, either JPEGs like still images or just like 5-second loops of like a crystal spinning or something. And then I'm like, that's not super interesting to me. Like my sort of native form of making people feel things is with given more time. And so slightly longer form content, right? Like even the Uniswap thing was only 45 seconds. So it's relatively short, but I think that only just started to give me a sliver of enough time to make people feel something while watching it and to something that I would think is satisfactory. And then so I really started to think about, well, it doesn't make sense that, somebody would spend like months and months making this like epic animation and like selling it as a one-of-one NFT. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me, right? And then so I started really, like thinking more about how we can sort of like create utility. And, there's so many projects out there that have like made all these promises about our end goal is to make an animation or to create an IP. We're going to sell these PFPs, and then at the end, maybe a few years from now, we're going to make an animation. I was like, why aren't people doing that already? Right? Like,
because it's really hard.
animation. Sorry,
because it's actually really
but I was
hard.
like, I know how animation works, right? Like, I come from this background. I'm sure Maciej knows how. And then so I sort of got on a call with him, and then pitched him this idea of what is Shibuya today, and then luckily he was crazy enough to say yes and just start working on it with me. And obviously then we recruited and our other co-founders, the developers, so Jackie, Gif, and Alex, who are collectively known as Pleaser devs. And we make this sort of really, really awesome team where we have all this dynamic together. And we were like, let's just create an anime. But beyond just creating an anime, how do we get funded? Through NFTs, but how do we make this more interesting and interactive for the audience? So, with this first episode of White Rabbit, which is really sort of like a proof of concept, is just to show people what is actually possible. And half of the inspiration came from watching that one episode of Black Mirror called Bandersnatch, where it's like an interactive one. And I don't know if anyone has seen it, but like if you've seen it in the episode, like if the guy, it's like they've pre-shot all these different sort of outcomes for the same different storyline kind of. And it'd be like the guy has come across like two cereals, and it would ask the audience like, do you want to eat this cereal or that cereal? And then depending on which cereal he eats, it splits off into another tree of story. And so this first episode of White Rabbit is that if you like click on each specific door, then it like first you have to mint an NFT, and then by selecting a door you can stake your NFT into that door. and then watch sort of like the alternate ending behind that door. And it was just like a proof of concept. We're making chapter 2, which is actually launching next week. So, if people are interested in participating, I highly encourage them to go check it out. And the cool thing about it is, by minting an NFT, you're sort of um, like helping not just to fund the production of this anime, but also you are kind of helping decide the outcome. Because so for this, it was like a vote, right? And then so 70% of our viewers actually staked the left door. And so now the left door is deciding where the rest of the series is going. And then when you see these credits, they're actually live updating based on, because when you vote, you also get these sort of film tokens back. So we're calling them White Rabbit tokens. Sort of like as a reward for participating. And also you can use it as to participate in like snapshot voting or governance. So the main character of this anime, her name was actually decided on or voted on by the community. And obviously it's, token weighted. So the more RAB tokens you have, like the more your vote counts for. And then all of these addresses here is everybody who participated and has tokens by voting and minting the NFT. And it's literally listed in order of your token balance. And so, it's created this like sort of fun incentive in that you're not only funding the production of the film at the same time, but also, interacting with it. And also you have incentive to like move up the ranks and the credits if you want to, by just interacting with it more. Because you can't obviously buy the token on any marketplace. So you can only earn it by engaging with the actual content itself. And so, yeah, I mean, I would highly encourage people to check it out. Our second chapter is coming out next week. We worked, several months on it. So, and it's going to be much longer than the first chapter. And I'm excited for everyone to check it out. But mainly just that I was like kind of getting tired of people always promising, oh, one day we're going to make an animation or whatever. And I'm like, I have the means to do it. Maciej has the means to do it. Why don't we just get together and actually start doing it so that people can have something to watch?
Yeah, that is the thing, isn't it? And also the lead time on animations is generally pretty extensive and pretty long. And even just getting the right voice artists in. I think what people don't appreciate enough about animation is that you get given nothing. Like if I take a camera and I point it at something, I get all the environment for free. I get that. Sometimes you have to, dress it up with things, but that inherently is there, and it's a starting block. With animation, you start with nothing. It's the white paper problem. Like when you start writing a script, I think people probably don't understand how much planning and sketching and ideation and concept design and everything else has to go into animations to really make them good. And we just see so much good animation out there, but it's not a skill that just sort of like, yeah, okay. It's not content creation the way we would, I could just sit in front of the camera and say stuff, but like the animation
It's
doesn't
not
work.
like creating a TikTok, that's for sure.
No, absolutely not. And do you find that process enjoyable? Because I personally, I need things to go fast, and I'm looking for ways to be using tools like Unreal Engine to do things near enough in real time. So I could be this, but I can also be in an animation setting and have things that I can trigger programmatically with control surfaces and things like that. But I mean, maybe the more sedate pace suits you, but I don't know. What's your creative process like?
I think really from my time working in visual effects, it's been, I've trained to have a lot of patience now. In visual effects, you can literally spend weeks on weeks staring at 3 pixels of the exact same 2 seconds of a shot, right? And every day, we call them dailies, you just go into the theater, you watch the same 2 seconds over and over again, and then you super duper over analyze everything. So at least for me, the pace of White Rabbit is already much faster than normal animation, which I like. Yeah, definitely it's not, but there's definitely a fine balance between obviously, creating video and that's very fast or real time versus, the sort of pre-rendered and how much time and, the more time, at least if it's done right, the more time you put into it, definitely the more rewarding the outcome is. So there's definitely a fine balance there. And that's something that I'm, finding novel and interesting and cool about working on White Rabbit as well. And, I love that fans are engaged between chapters and, sometimes they are like so eager to watch the next one. But yeah, I think people don't realize how much work actually goes into making, one of these things. Like they'd be like, oh my God, the first chapter was only, less than a minute long. And, and then we'd be like, well, first, it was only me and Maciej, two people who made that sort of minute of content. Chapter 2 is longer, and also because from the funds we raised, we call it efficient capital. It's like from the funds we raised with chapter 1, we already put that immediately to use, and we are hiring animators and voice actors, and we now have a composer and all these people working on chapter 2. So it's going to be already noticeably a higher production quality than the first chapter. But it's just like, instead of promising these things will happen, we're like, we are literally making it happen already, and we hope that the people will enjoy it and like it. But it is a lot of work, but it does pay off, I think.
It's the eternal magic trick, isn't it? You make things look really easy, and also it doesn't help that the tools themselves are getting better at an extraordinary rate now. So you can achieve a lot more. You can be photorealistic faster. You can create textures, and you can do all the toon shading and things. Did you ever see Children of Men, the feature film Children of Men?
No.
So it's an amazing film. You should watch it anyway. But there's a massive long sequence at the end of it, which is about 11 minutes long, and it's Clive Owen like trying to shepherd a girl with a baby through this kind of apocalyptic landscape. And right in probably like minute 2, a squib goes off and blood splatters all over the lens. And this is an 11-minute shot with massive explosions and everything going on. So it's a one taker. Like blood goes all over the lens, and the director Alfonso Cuarón decides that is the shot that he wants to go with. That's the best take performance-wise, and there's blood all over the lens. Some poor visual effects artist spent somewhere in the region of 7 months getting rid of the blood on every single frame. So gradually over time, the blood disappears, but the blood was there the whole time. I mean, can you imagine?
Man, that sounds amazing. I definitely need to put that on my watch list for sure.
But in terms of bravura filmmaking, there are some sequences in that film that are just so insanely good. Like, and he took all of that learning into Gravity, which he didn't. I think was not the next film, but the one after. And like, it's really impressive. But there's that one detail, the blood, someone just painting it out progressively, frame by frame.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, frame by frame animation is definitely like one of the hardest or most time consuming animation for sure. But I definitely think our technology isn't there yet where if you just make things in real time, it's definitely getting better. But even with toon shaders too, I think without, Maciej does these like, I won't reveal how he does it, but there's like, some magic stuff that he does that is definitely not, sort of you need like the artistry of like a hand and an eye to do without just like relying on computers and stuff. But definitely, we try to find the most efficient balance of that, making White Rabbits so that it looks authentic and, not overly sort of lazy on a technical sense, but also that it's fast enough in production that people don't lose interest because we disappeared for like 2 years, right?
yeah, that's your issue, isn't it? It's just how do you keep the pitchforks at bay, because people get really angry with you when you haven't delivered anything. But you can also say, hey, listen, we're pretty much the best at what we do. It'll be good when it comes, so just be patient. What I
Yeah,
was really interested in was the participation rate when I was looking at how many people actually participated, because it's really hard to get people to actually even just vote on a thing
I
in
know.
blockchain, because no one bothers. It's the participation rate's so low. But you had a lot of names there. That was
Yeah, I think we had at like almost 90% of the people who bought the NFT ended up staking it, which is amazing. And, I think that's sort of the metric that I really look for success in a project like this because, floor prices and selling out and things like that, that's like an era of JPEG PFPs, which we will move past. And, sort of now I'm trying to understand the mentality of the audience and how they engage with the content, right? And so that was really reassuring to me that first people took the time to either like read my Medium post or understand what the project actually is and not just they're buying this PFP or this NFT to flip it. And then, the fact that they understood it enough to really stake it was really, really just rewarding and, so reassuring. And I think the next step is I think a lot of people didn't understand that you could also you have to unstake it in order, for example, if you voted for the popularity vote, then you get additional tokens back when you unstake. And so, this is all sort of like we're figuring it out as a process as well to make people understand that more, either through our tweets or we need to design the website to make it a little bit more clear. But it is fun trying to figure it out. And I'm glad that there's so many people who are on this journey with us.
Yeah, and I think what we need to do as well is not fork every idea that gains traction, but actually be brave enough to go and make our own ideas and trust that if our execution is good enough, the audience will be there, and those audience members will become advocates in a way that is much more organic and wholesome in the long run. And in the long run is that phrase that everyone just goes, yeah, really? But like the floor over there is like going up, it's going up. And then they go, but bear market. Welcome to the bear market. And we can just do stuff. And suddenly when the floor price isn't rising and everything's static, the story has to be good and the story has to matter. And I think that's something that you guys, I'm sure we'll see more of in season 2, of this kind of mysterious atmosphere start to take shape and we see where it's going and what's going to happen. Awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time. I don't want to take up any more time with you than I have to, because I believe there are people outside your hotel room that will get very angry with me if I do. But do you have any last words for someone who might find themselves in the same predicament that you did when this all kind of started to crystallize, just to give them an idea of what they should think about, what they should do, just to believe in themselves and give it a shot?
I think, if I could go back in time, is maybe like, don't be too hard on yourself. If something isn't the way that you think it is at the moment, you never know what's going to happen later. And, I'm so glad that there were definitely days during my, downtime or unemployment where I felt really unmotivated and I just wanted to stay in bed the whole day. But there were times where I forced myself to get up and get in front of the computer and just make something and post it, even if I didn't think it was that good. And then now it's like I have so much limited, artwork from that era, that is so valuable to me now. And so I'm super grateful that at the times that I did muster the courage to come up and make something out of my time. And I think, yeah, just be kinder to yourself. And I'm also somebody who has benefited from a result of being in the right place at the right time, combined with, definitely some hard work or talent, hopefully, that I've accumulated over the years. But a lot of it was circumstantial as well. And that is really crypto at the end of the day, right? You buy something at the right time and then you have a moon bag, or, vice versa. And so just really, not taking anything too seriously, and don't look at anybody else's overnight success and think, oh, that also has to happen to me. Just believe in yourself. Always brush up on your technical skills. Be observant, be a sponge, absorb culture and humor and understand why people find things cool or funny, and try to extract that and re-inject it into your own work, and just have more fun with it.
And you can't rush it either. These things,
Yes,
they don't happen overnight. And it's
they do
very easy to
not.
point at kind of people who go, oh, they just blew up overnight. But then you don't see the hours and hours and hours that ended up at this point. And also a lot of people, they blow up and they don't know what to do with it. And they don't know how to do that difficult second album. And I think what you've managed to do with Shibuya is really elevate what you've done to a place where it's very difficult for anyone else to come along and copy that. And that's a difficult magic trick to pull off. So it's very, very impressive. Well, there we go. It's time to end. Emily, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's taken us a long time to get this together, but I hope it was as enjoyable for you as it was for me. It was really an absolute pleasure, and I wish you all
Thank you
success.
so much. This was one of my favorite interviews, and I'm so glad we got to do it.
Oh, that means a lot. That means a lot. Well, I'm a huge fan of Maciej as well. Such a big
I
fan.
will tell him. I'm sure he might even be watching. Actually, I don't know. It might be early in Pacific time, but I'm sure he's
Yeah,
gonna watch this.
we
I will
talked
tell him you said
before.
hi.
We talked before, and it was a good one. So anyway,
Yeah.
thank you. If you're watching at home and you are enjoying this content, please do subscribe and like and all those usual things. You know what to do. But my thanks to Emily Yang once again, and go check out Shibuya. It's awesome. Peace.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Earn up to